Hello everyone. Good evening.
Hello, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening, all. Shall we start our class?
Sure.
Okay, fine. Today we are going to start a new tool, that is Docker. Okay. I have PPT, guys. Let me just open it up. Yeah, I think I did not share yesterday Git FAQs, right? I think
Sir,
I did not share, right?
Yes,
Not sure.
Okay. Today I'll share. Today, sorry for that. Today
Okay,
I'll share. Okay, in today's recording video, along with that you will get.
okay, sir.
Yeah, and Sai is there it for Linux? Linux is not.
Linux, no question. Just those are just basic commands, right? Yeah, you just need to practice commands. That's it. They won't ask any questions on Linux, guys. You are applying a job for DevOps. That means it is well understood that you know Linux. Okay. So if you are not good at DevOps, then they might ask questions on Linux. Just they want to test you. That two basic commands. Commands. We don't have any FAQs for that. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Coming to Docker. See, before you understand Docker, you must know one important word, that is container. Okay, that word is container. Right here. Container. So what is container? See, container is like a normal machine. Your normal machine. You can think of like EC2. Okay. Container is like a normal machine having OS. Inside you can install some softwares. Everything you can do whatever you want. Okay. So container is like a normal machine having OS, softwares, everything. It is just like a normal EC2 instance. Or you can think of your laptop, right? It's just a machine, right? So container is just like a machine. Then what is Docker? Docker is a tool by using which we can create these containers. We can create these containers. That means by using Docker, we can create as many number of containers that you want. Okay. So by using Docker, we can create containers. Container means like a normal machine. So by using Docker, we can create multiple machines. That is the purpose of Docker. You might be thinking, Sai, first of all, why we need to create machines? Already we have EC2 instances are there, but why? That's why do we need to create machines again? See, guys, EC2 instance, they are costly. They are not cheap. That means when you run EC2 instance, you need to pay to AWS, right? Correct? For the RAM, hard disk, and all, right? But here, compared to EC2, containers are very, very cheap. In every manner, like to launch EC2, it takes 1 minute, but to start container, it takes 1 second. Okay, so like many advantages are there. Okay, so that is the reason nowadays we are using containers. Okay, many advantages are there. I'm going to explain all those things one by one. Right. So the purpose of Docker is just to create containers. Main purpose. Apart from that, many other advantages are there. Got it? So let's see all those things one by one. Container is like a normal machine, virtual machine. Virtual means what? Which is not physical. EC2 instance is a virtual machine, which you cannot see, which you cannot touch, but still you can use. My laptop is physical machine, which I can touch. EC2 instance is like a virtual machine, which I can't touch, but still I can use it. So container is also like a virtual machine. Docker, by using Docker is a tool to create those virtual machines, or you can call containers. That is a difference. So little bit history. Docker is a tool that performs. Yeah. See guys, if you want to understand Docker, you should understand three important keywords. One is OS level virtualization. OS level virtualization. Second word is layered file system. Layered file system. And the third one is union file system. Okay. So if you understand these three words, that's it. Okay, you will understand Docker easily. OS level virtualization or OS operating system level virtualization. Layered file system, union file system. Docker is mainly of these three keywords. Yes, I have an elaborated explanation for each keyword that I am going to explain. So Docker is a tool that performs here OS level virtualization. That OS level virtualization only we call containerization. Either you can call OS level virtualization or you can call containerization. You can use any of these words. I'll tell you what is this one. It was first released on so they developed it in 2013 and all. Little bit history. That's okay. Docker is a tool used to create virtual machines. Those virtual machines we call containers that already we discussed, right? Okay. So the Docker word we took from shipping containers. Okay, that word we took from shipping containers. You can see these are ship, these are containers. Correct. These containers we use to transport, goods to other countries, right? So from that we took that word Docker. Okay, shipping container. Docker is a tool designed. Okay, Docker is a tool designed to make containers in which you can deploy any type of applications easily. That means here, by using Docker, you can create containers, correct? You can see these are containers. Any number of containers that you can create. In which you can deploy any kind of applications like web application. You remember, we installed HTTPD, correct? Web server when we were discussing about web server. So that's web application, yes. So we can deploy any kind of applications. Later on, we are going to deploy many other applications like Tomcat and all, n number of things. So in these containers, we can deploy those applications. Okay. You can use these containers just like your EC2 instances. Okay, like that you can happily use it. As I said, Docker uses union file system. Okay, see here union file system. Another one is layered file system. These are a little bit interrelated. Now I'm just going to explain just in a couple of minutes. Okay, Docker performs OS level virtualization. Yeah, you can see these three keywords: union file system, layered file system, OS level virtualization. Docker comes at deployment level. Deployment in the sense, see, by using Docker, you can't deploy anything. If you want to deploy, for example, one application is there. Okay, one application, web application. Okay, I want to see, I have 1,000 servers out there. I want to make all 1,000 servers as web servers. So I want to deploy that web application, means that web package, HTTPD I want to deploy, I want to install. Either you can call install or deploy, guys. Okay. I want to deploy that HTTPD package. So by using Docker, you can't do that. Okay, to deploy something further, we have a tool called Ansible that we are going to discuss. So Ansible comes at deployment level. By using Ansible, we can deploy any kind of application in thousands of servers. But why Docker is also coming at deployment level? Because these machines could be Docker containers. These machines could be Docker containers. That's why Docker also comes at deployment level. But the purpose is different. That means by using Docker, you can create containers in which you can deploy any kind of application by using Ansible. Both are coming at deployment level only, but you have to understand the differences. By using Docker, you are creating container in which by using Ansible, you can deploy any kind of application. So that's why both come at deployment level only, but purpose is different. Got it? That's a Docker also comes at deployment level. Okay. Now let's try to understand all those keywords and all. What is the actual meaning of the that keywords. So for that, you should understand the differences between VMware and Docker. Earlier when cloud was not there, so at that time, when I started learning Linux, that time I used to have one Windows laptop, but I wanted to practice Linux commands. Okay. So that time what we used to do, see, this is my hardware, means my laptop. On top of that, I used to have OS, Windows OS. Okay. But I wanted to practice Linux commands when I was learning Linux. So that time what we used to do, we used to install virtualization software. Any virtualization software, like VMware or Oracle VirtualBox. These are two companies, Oracle and VMware. They are providing some softwares. Okay, VMware, or you can call Oracle VirtualBox. These are the softwares. Those we call virtualization softwares. You can see. So what actually happens if you install virtualization software? So this virtualization software, it allows us to create virtual machines like this. You can see. We call virtual machine VM1, virtual machine 2, like that. Okay. So we can create virtual machines. Now in this, we have to install OS. Yes, you can have any OS. For example, I want to have Red Hat virtual machine 1. Then what I do, I install Red Hat Linux, RHEL. Suppose I want to have a CentOS, here I install CentOS. This is OS, operating system. Okay. Then here we used to install softwares and whatever to practice and all that. So we used to go to these virtual machines and we used to practice. That is how we used to do earlier. Okay. I am pretty sure now also few people are doing this one. Guys, please tell me, how many of you used VMwares or Oracle VirtualBoxes? Anyone?
Sir, I have used.
You use, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Earlier we used to use earlier. Okay. Fine. Anyways, VirtualBox also, that is there. That tool also we are going to discuss actually. Okay. So that's how we used to do earlier. Let me mention either same VMware or Oracle VirtualBox. Concept is same. Okay. Let me write VMware. Or Oracle VirtualBox. In both scenarios, this is same concept. Now coming to Docker here. So why are we not using VMwares and Oracle VirtualBoxes, and why we started using? Why? Because in Docker also, see here, this is the hardware. On top of that, we have OS, base machine. On top of that, instead of virtualization software, we are going to install Docker software. We are going to install Docker. Then after installing Docker, we can create containers. You can see. We can create containers. This is container 1. This container 2. Now you might be having doubts. Both are same. VMware's, Oracle VirtualBoxes or Docker. What is the difference? What is the advantage that we are getting in Docker? So the advantage is, see, this size both are same. You can see like that. Okay. So this size is equivalent to this one. That means in Docker containers, we don't install OS. We keep only software. That's it. You can see only softwares. No need to have any OS. Okay, containers, they don't have any operating systems. Okay, so you might be thinking, Sai, without OS, how can you run a container? Yeah, we can run. That's what I'm going to explain. We can run. So containers, they don't have operating system. That's the first point you should understand. Okay, so what kind of advantage we are getting? See, this, suppose I want some, assume that my base machine is having 12 GB of RAM. Right now, my laptop is having 12 GB of RAM. So, assume that 100 GB of hard disk. Assume. Okay. 12 GB of RAM, 100 GB of hard disk. Now, each OS, whatever you are taking, right? Each OS takes 10 GB around. Each OS takes 10 GB. If you take VMware's or Oracle virtual boxes, okay, it takes 10 GB. Okay, OS size itself we call 10 GB is. That's it varies 7, 8, 9, 10 like that. But on an average, each OS will have the size of OS is 10 GB. 10 GB means each VM is consuming 10 GB. So that storage will be consumed from base machine only. Correct or not? That storage will be consumed from base machine's hard disk. So 10 GB, 10 GB. Suppose I want 20 machines, 20 VMs. Is it possible? No. See, 20 means 20 into 10, 200 GB I want. But base machine is having only 100 GB. So how can I create 20 machines? Now you might be thinking, first of all, why do we need 20 machines? Yes, we need 20. In fact, more than that for testing, development and all. That part I will explain later on. What is a need? But as of now, understand that we need machines, many machines. But here you have a limitation. In order to increase number of virtual machines, you have to increase base machine's hard disk. Correct or not? Right? That means here there is a limit. Okay, because every OS is taking. But that is not the case here. First of all, your machine is not even taking OS. Right? That much of storage we are saving here. Correct or not? Here in Docker. That means if you here you can't create more than 10. You can't create more than 10 virtual machines. But here you can create hundreds of containers. Assume that both base machines are having same configuration. Okay, so if you take VMware's or Oracle virtual boxes, you can't have more virtual machine. But here you can have any number of containers because no container is consuming OS. It is taking OS. So we are saving that much of storage. Correct. So that's why we can have more containers. Yeah, softwares, if they consume storage, for example, 1 GB, they might consume, but 1 GB software they consume less storage rate. That's okay. That it will take from base machine. But here mainly we are saving this OS related storage. That's the first advantage. Guys, you understood this one? What we are saving here? The first advantage you understood, everyone? Please respond. Right? Okay.
Yes.
Correct. Now coming to second advantage. What is the second advantage? Each VM here, to create each VM, we have to allocate some RAM. We have to allocate some RAM. Like assume that each VM is consuming 2 GB of RAM. 2 GB of RAM. This also 2 GB of. Let me write properly. This is consuming 2 GB of RAM. Here also 2 GB of RAM. Okay. So 2 GB, we have to allocate that RAM first. Okay, you are creating one virtual machine. First, you need to allocate that. You have to reserve that RAM for that. You are reserving some RAM, 2 GB, 2 GB. My base laptop is having only 12 GB. That means how many virtual machines I can create? Max 6. Because each one is consuming 2 GB. So 6 into 2, 12. Done. So max 6 only. In order to increase virtual machines, I have to increase this RAM. That means I need to spend money. Correct or not? To buy RAM, it takes, that is costly, right? You need to buy. So pre-allocation of RAM is there. Suppose here the problem is, observe carefully. You are allocating 2 GB, but assume that in that it is consuming only some, 1 GB only. You allocated, but it is consuming only 1 GB. See, I have when one big plate with full of food. But in that you are consuming only half of the food. Remaining half, neither you eating nor you are letting others to eat. Correct? That's a waste of food, right? Correct or not? So that's the thing. Here also, when you allocate 2 GB RAM, assume that it is consuming only 1 GB. Remaining 1 GB is waste. Neither it consuming nor it is allowing others to use. That's the problem here, right? Because you are reserving that RAM for each virtual machine. But that is not the case here. Here, during runtime, whatever RAM it needs, it will consume during runtime. For example, there is no reservation and there is no allocation. Suppose right now it is consuming 2 GB. Suppose when you stop, so it will release that RAM. It will release immediately, so that other containers can use. Got it? So in a simple, manner, let me put it in simple terms. In virtual machines here, there is a pre-allocation of RAM, reserving the RAM. But here that is not the case. During runtime, whatever it consumes, after that it releases, so that others can use. Correct? That means compared to virtual machines, we can create more containers. There's a second advantage, right? In terms of RAM. Correct or not? So guys, please respond. You understood second advantage?
Yes, I.
Right. Okay. So these are two advantages. So apart from that, we have many other advantages are there, but these two major advantages that we are getting. Okay, we are saving a lot of storage. We are saving a lot of RAM. See, if you take any machine, mostly we spend money for these things only, right? Hard disk and RAM, correct or not? So here, if you can create 10 machines here you can create more than 100 with the same configuration. That means in Docker, you are saving a lot of money. Correct. Now you might be thinking, Sai, EC2 instances are there. Why are we using Docker? Even though you have EC2 instance, see, EC2 instance also kind of same concept here only. Same. Only thing is that this hardware and OS is with AWS. Correct or not? This is with AWS. This is not, see, in VMware, Oracle, VirtualBoxes, these two are with me, my laptop and all. But if it is EC2, then these two with AWS. AWS. Correct? Remaining things are same. See, you are, while launching EC2 instance, you are taking 8 GB of hard disk. Correct? For every EC2 instance, you are taking 8 GB. Right? 1 GB of RAM we took so far, T2 micro. We took 1 GB, but did we use complete 100% 1 GB? No, we might be using only 20% only in that. Remaining 80%, that's a waste. You are paying for, if you go out of free tier, like after 1 year, you need to pay for this, right? After free tier is over, then when you take even T2 micro, you need to pay for that. You are using only 20%, but remaining 80% in that 1 GB, that's a waste. You are not using, still you are paying to AWS. Here also 8 GB. Did we use complete 8 GB till now? No, you might be using only 5 GB. Remaining 3 GB is waste. You are not using, you are not letting others use. Correct or not? Suppose if I want 100 machines, if you take 100 EC2 instances, you need to pay a lot of money to AWS. Correct? But what you do, simple, you take one machine, any one machine. On top of that, you install Docker, you create containers. Like that, you create containers, so many containers. So that is the advantage here. That's the beauty here in Docker. But so generally what we do, what we are doing in companies, where is my mouse? Oh, yeah. So in companies, what we are doing actually, we are taking EC2 instance here. Hardware OS means this in place of this, we are taking EC2 instance. On top of EC2, we are installing Docker. You remember in previous class, we took EC2. On top of that, we installed Git. In the same manner, on top of EC2, we are going to install Docker. Then we create containers. So on top of one EC2, there will be many containers, right? So I can use all these containers. That is how actually we are using. That's what actually we are doing by, with the Docker. Okay. I hope you understood why we are not using, these VMware's Oracle virtual boxes and all. And EC2 instance we are using, but on top of EC2 we are keeping Docker containers. That is the reason. So guys, you understood this one till here? Everyone, please respond. You understood?
Yes, sir. But physical storage is hello.
Yeah,
Sorry, okay.
I'll come to your doubts. Because I need to explain many more things.
Okay.
I'll come to your doubts, all your doubts at the end of this. Now let me give you that diagram and all clearly. So this is my laptop. Physical server, you can think. This is EC2 instance. This is Docker. Now you'll understand the differences. My laptop means this is hardware. OS. Okay. So if I want multiple machines, what actually we in laptop, this is only one laptop, right? Here. On top of that, we used to use virtualization softwares. Okay. Then we used to create virtual machines. That's how we used to do. Okay. That's the problem with this one. So if you want to create more virtual machines, you need to increase the base machines configuration. Right? That's a problem here. The problem with EC2 is here also same thing. Here, the OS and hardware with AWS here. OS, underlying hardware, that is with AWS. Okay. So here also you can install virtualization software. Here also you can create virtual machines. But here also same thing, right? If you want to create more virtual machine, you need to increase base machines hard disk and RAM, EC2 instance configuration, like T2 micro, T2 medium, T2 large and all that. That means if you add more hard disk and more RAM, you need to pay to AWS. So here also same thing. Correct? But in Docker, same. What we do, you take some EC2 instance. On top of that, you install a Docker. Then you can create a many number of containers. That's the advantage. Understood? So in a simple terms, what actually we do in companies, we will take one EC2 instance because we need one machine, right? We need one base machine. So in place of that, we are taking EC2 instance. On top of that, we are installing Docker software. On top of that, we are creating containers. That is what we are doing. Okay, these are containers. Container 1, container 2. That is what actually we are doing. Okay. So here you can create any number of, suppose you can create hundreds of containers. But if you launch hundreds of EC2 instances, they are pretty cost, right? Here you are paying for, you are using all 100 containers, but you are paying for only one EC2. But if you launch 100 EC2 instances, you need to pay more, right? That's a problem. Okay. Yeah, this is fine. But the problem is, your doubt is, Sai, how can you run a machine without a OS? Okay, how can you even, you said, I said containers, they don't have OS. But without any operating system, how can you run a container? Correct or not? Right? So that's what I'm going to explain now. For that, you should understand Unix and its flavors, Linux and its flavors. You remember in our first class, I have explained Unix. What are the flavors of Unix? One is Linux, another one is Mac OS, another one is AIX, another one is HPUX, another one is Solaris. These are the flavors of Unix. What are the flavors of Linux? Red Hat Linux, CentOS, Amazon Linux, Ubuntu. Correct? These are the flavors of Linux. Now, what is the difference among all these? See, in all these operating systems, core OS is Unix only. In all these operating systems, core OS is Unix only. That means 95% is pretty same. That's what I have explained when I started my Linux class. Correct? In all these operating systems, there is one common thing, that is 95% is pretty common. Only 5% changes are there. Correct? Different company, different people, they have added their own features only related to just 5%. Right? Apart from that, that remaining 95% is pretty same. So that we are taking this advantage. We are taking this advantage in Docker. That means, suppose here you are taking one EC2 instance. You launch one EC2. Suppose I took which one? Amazon Linux. This Amazon Linux is having 95% of Unix. Correct? It is having 95% of Unix. This Amazon Linux, right? On top of that, I'm going to install Docker. Then we create containers. Docker containers. Container 1, container 2. So here, already Unix is there, 95% Unix is there. Suppose I want container 1 should have Red Hat operating system. Container 2 should have Ubuntu. Okay. So in all, whether it's Red Hat, Ubuntu or Amazon Linux, 95% Unix is same. So these two containers, they depend upon base machines OS for that 95% of Unix. Okay, see, Red Hat means it needs 95% Unix. So it will depend upon base machines, 95% Unix. And remaining 5%, it needs Red Hat related thing, remaining 5%. So we have a hub called Docker Hub. You can see here. There's a hub called Docker Hub. Just like GitHub, there's a Docker Hub. So Docker Hub has so many images. We call them as images. Okay, image like Red Hat image, like CentOS image, Ubuntu image, like many images are there. So what are those images? These either you can call images or operating systems. You can call them as operating systems, but they have only 5% of that Red Hat features. This is having only 5% of CentOS. Like these Docker images, they don't have 95% Unix. They have only 5% of their features. So in order to create any container, suppose I want to create a Red Hat container, then I take the Red Hat image. You can see Red Hat image. So this image is having already 5% of Red Hat. Correct? 5%. So it needs remaining 95% of Unix. So that Unix, it will take from base machine. It will depend upon base machine. That is the advantage that we are taking here. So here you need Ubuntu. So to create this container, if you want to create Ubuntu container, you need to take Ubuntu image. You can see here Ubuntu. Of only that contains only 5% of Ubuntu features. For remaining 95% Unix, it will depend upon base machine. That is so. Now you might be thinking, base machine is having Amazon Linux. What if I want to create Amazon Linux container? Okay, that means we don't even need any image also. No, guys, that is not the case. Containers, they depend upon base machines OS of only for the 95% only. It won't take any other things. If you want to create Amazon Linux container, Amazon Linux, then you have to take Amazon Linux image. Okay, 5% Amazon Linux. Because container, they take only 95% Unix only. Even though this is Amazon Linux, base machine is also Amazon Linux. So do we need any OS? You might be thinking, so we don't even need have that 5% also. No. Containers, they depend upon base machine OS only for 95% Unix only. So to create container, you have to have a Docker image. Okay, having 5% of whatever OS that you want. That is so. Now here you might be thinking, you said containers, they don't have any OS, but you are saying that now container will have OS, but of only 5%. Yeah. See here, the thing is that out of 100%, 5% is negligible. It's almost negligible. Okay. Suppose, suppose you want to, you purchase one biryani for some 97 rupees. Okay. You have given 100 rupees to that seller, biryani, seller. Okay. You have given 100%. So he has to give 3 rupees back to you. If he says that, sir, I don't have change, then someday you say, it's okay, keep it. Correct or not? That's okay, no need to. So out of this big money, this 4, 5 rupees, they are pretty small, almost negligible. Correct or not? So here also same thing. If you take that big 100%, that 5% is negligible. We don't even consider it. That's why generally we say that containers, they don't have any OS because these are negligible here. We don't even need to care about that. Negligible. It doesn't mean that without them we can create containers. No. To create container, you have to have the Docker image, but it consumes less OS. Very, very 5, in fact, less than 5. You know what? Each OA image contains around some 60 MB. 60 MB. Okay, 60 MB. But if you take VMware OS, VMware, that 100%, 10 GB. Can you imagine? 10 GB. Okay. 1 GB is 1024, right? Okay. Okay, let's take 1000. 1000 MB equal to 1 GB. So 10 GB means 10,000 MBs you need. Okay. VMware OS. But Docker image contains only 60 MB. Here, see, 10,060. What is it? It is nothing, nowhere. Correct or not? So that is a difference. Okay, these images, they contain very, very less space, less than 5. Just have taken the number 5, less than 5%. That's why generally it's a negligible. So what if they ask you in interview? Hey, if they ask you in interview that do Docker containers, they have OS? You have to say no. You have to say no. Containers, they don't have any operating system. That's what you have to say. But if they ask you, hey, without OS, how can you run a container? Without OS, how can even you run a container? If they ask you again, counter question, then you have to say that, no, containers, they do have OS, but negligible. That's a very, very small portion. Okay, that is negligible. So containers, they do have OS in the form of Docker images, but that is negligible, very, very minute. That's why generally we say that containers, they don't have any operating system. So that is the storage that we are saving. So here the advantage is base machine is already having OS. Then why every container should have again network Unix? Correct? That is the thing. Now you might be thinking, Sai, okay, it is fine. Linux, you are, base machine is Unix flavor, containers also Unix flavor. But what if my base machine is Windows? Correct or not? If my base machine is Windows, then see here. If it is Windows, Windows doesn't have 95% Unix, correct or not? Right? See here, you are installing Docker for Linux. So if your base machine is Windows, you have to install Docker for Windows, correct? You have to download Docker for Windows software, correct? So since that Windows base machine doesn't have any Unix OS, Unix, network Unix. So when you download a software for Windows, Docker software, that Windows software, the Docker software for Windows, this comes with 95% Unix. See here. When you download Docker software for Linux, you will get only Docker software. But when you download Docker software for Windows, then along with the Docker software, with that you will get 95% Unix also. So when you create any container on your Windows, that container will consume 95% Unix from this Docker software. Inside 95% Unix is it? It will depend upon this one. So that is how actually it works. Okay, that is so. Okay. Now you might be, so that means by now you understood that, okay, underlying platform could be Windows or Linux, doesn't matter, correct? But don't worry, you should not think about Windows containers. Suppose so far you have been talking about Linux containers, Linux flavored containers. But what if I want Windows container? Container itself, I want Windows. Underlying base wise, we talked about Unix, talked about, this Windows and all. But what if I want Windows container? No, guys, Docker is not supporting. Recently, it started supporting Windows containers, but not fully operational yet. So that's why you can forget about Windows container. And you can, in fact, forget about this one also. Because Docker is mainly designed for Linux only, not for Windows. That's why I told you, right? We take EC2 instances, Amazon Linux and all. Then on top of that, we are creating content. So just we forget about Windows. We are not at all Docker. We are not at all using for Windows. Got it? Fine. Now observe every year. Each content is depending upon base machines OS, correct? Each content is depending upon base machines OS virtually. Correct or not? See. Each content is depending upon base machines OS. Physically? No, virtually. Physically means directly taking that OS. No, virtually it is depending upon this. Correct? Every container. So that's why we call this as OS level virtualization. OS level virtualization. Why are we calling as OS level virtualization? Because each container is depending upon base machines OS virtually. That's why we call OS level virtualization. Understood, everyone? That's it. That OS level virtualization also we can call containerization. Container, either you can call OS level virtualization or containerization. Okay. So that means every container is depending upon base machines OS for that 95% Unix. Okay. So if you want to create any container, you have to have Docker image. These are freely available. You have to take one Docker image, whatever OS you want. Like I want Red Hat. So you take Red Hat Docker image, then you create container. So remaining 95% it will depend upon base machines OS 95%. That is how Docker is going to work. Okay. So I hope you understood what is OS level virtualization. Please respond, guys. Understood or not?
Yes.
Yes.
Everyone.
Yes.
Okay.